We're looking forward to what you have to present to us.
All right, thank you for having us here. At the back, we have our President, John Bruins, and our Treasurer, Dave Walling. So that should intimidate you greatly.
Welcome you both.
Yeah, John's been with us for well over 20 years. Dave has joined recently and is learning all the ins and outs of our wonderful financial state. At the blues concert, Heather was maybe the only one there, but I thank the audience for helping us set a record-setting year. We sold out every single event of the season. And of course they laughed because they knew they were there for the only event of the season and we could only have 200, so we sold it out. But I did point out to them that that's kind of fascinating because we went from 20,000 in 2019 to 200 people. So we had 1% of our audience. We were at 99% down in ticket sales. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at and how we're struggling to put all the pieces together. When you're in trouble, you always fall back on your core values. Ours are community, creativity, and celebration. And we value those three things. We always weigh what we do against them. And we take some pride in being part of a community and building community and being in community. And we also took, in the past, great pride in the fact that we helped bring in millions of dollars. We did our part. And this year has been a bit hard to realize not only could we not bring our guests into town, we couldn't even filter their donations out into town because those have dropped off as well. We didn't have our 35 or so staff living and spending and being in town. So it's been a very kind of a dry year in that sense for us. If you think in agricultural terms, retired farmer I showed the site around to the other day. We're trying to do tours to raise a bit of money. And he kind of went, wow, this is kind of hard. You didn't get to plant, you didn't get to watch anything grow, and you can't harvest anything. You got dirt. And I said, yeah, you know, that's kind of true. And his old buddy with him said, well, in my day of the horse and buggy, you said, we never say whoa in a mud hole. And I went, yeah, that's kind of us. We're in this mud hole, we're in this place, and we have not stopped. We did plant something this year. It's not a seasonal crop, it is a longer enduring tree. And we hope it will provide some fruit for us in the coming up years. And that's our new art center and studio theater. And it's been something that we have taken some great pride in. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I'll just play it for you so you can see that. And of course, opening 2020, maybe not so much. There's always hiccups and bumps. I mean, we didn't get, we had budgeted for about $100,000 of community service labor. Of course, we lost all that. We lost a lot of our free labor just from in the community because people haven't wanted to go out and do as much. But I mean, I'm happy to say that as of this morning when I took that, the center has come along well. The wraparound decks are in place. We've got the insides done. The metal roof is on. We're closing up inside with the insulation and rest of it. And we're moving on. We've got permission from CFEP to close off the 2019 grant, which was a really nice thing to be able to do, and to apply for a new one. So in spite of having all these difficulties and, of course, losing naming sponsorships and other sponsorships to the time frame, we have had definitely our challenges. But if you go in downstairs, We are now at that stage on the basement floor, the event hall. And then if you get a chance, go to our Facebook page and watch the little video of Christina singing upstairs, first ever singing in the new studio theater, which is the most amazing piece. To have that studio theater with an 18-foot ceiling, full-on lighting grid and control booth is something Drumheller does not have. In fact, many large centers don't have. And we, in our research, have led ourselves to believe that it is one of the largest, if not the largest, true black box theaters in Alberta. And that's pretty stunning to get to that point. Of course, we are scrimping by. Well, we just got 2 guys working every day on this big building, but we are slowly moving and keeping that going. So it's very key to us, because what it does is it takes us from where we are a passion play running in the days when I arrived 6 performances. And then we mothballed the whole thing for 9 months and came back and did it again. Now we're trying to run 3 overlapping seasons, the passion play season itself, and then the summer concert season with all the things that go on there. And then with this new building, a shoulder and winter season that allow us to have events every single weekend that we can combine with culinary, event hall stuff on the bottom and out on the decks, and then in the big studio theater upstairs as well. And we've already got people that are saying, hey, I want to be part of that. I want to be the first one in. Call me when it's ready. It's very important to us on a number of fronts for those 3 different seasons. Passion play, of course, it opens up all sorts of avenues for doing food and moving people around, rehearsal space for the bad weather. Most importantly, it's a safety issue. We were fortunate to get to where we are now, because in those sudden storms that we got hit with in 2019 and really knocked the stuffings out of us financially, even before 2020, we had sudden storms that came up and people with mobility issues. We had up to 500 people crammed in a metal frame tent in a lightning storm. Not a good idea, but we could not budge them. Whereas this building will have 5,000 square feet, plus we're renovating another 3 inside, plus we're adding another 1,000 on the decks outside, all to give sheltered space so that those people who cannot make it to their cars can have a safe place to be. That's very key. And then as well, of course, during concerts, we will have way more space then to spread out and to do more food options and those sort of things as well. And the winter event is the big deal, because unless we can start going year-round and have year-round cash flow, we will not make it. That's just a reality. Costs of putting that passion play on have gone up every year, and staffing has gone up, and we hire 35 of the best across Canada, but that payrolls over $300,000 alone just for those 3 months. So we have to start looking at ways that we can bring the cash flow in, keep the expenses down, and the rehearsal halls will help to shorten the rehearsal season as well. So we're looking at it and we're saying, okay, what are we looking for? We're not here to ask for money. Whew, there we go. Instead, we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for collaboration. You don't have to look very far to see that the fabric of society is getting a little frayed around the edges. And in the history of the world and human history, arts and culture play a role to keep hopes up, to keep people encouraged. It's been known right from the Roman times. Look at the Colosseum when they built that. There's things that sort of things in our culture really help to do those telling of those vital stories. So we're here, we're important, we think, and we want to find ways to move forward together. We will have a Customer Appreciation Day next Sunday from 1 to 3, and you're all welcome to come out, take a look around at this space for yourselves, get a glimpse of the possibilities. And then later in the meeting, during the in-camera session, we have a few things to tell you that we haven't released out to the public yet, that we want to vet by you and just suggest some ways of working toward and working together in the future. But if there's any questions, that's it for me. I won't take any more time than that.
All right, thanks, Vance. Does anybody have any questions? Tom?
Yeah, it looks very good. Passion Play has been an integral part of Drumheller for how many years now?
Well, this would have been 27th performing season. Incorporation was 1991.
And how much money do you think the Passion Play has brought into the valley over the last number of years?
Well, if you took 10 years, in the 10 years I started doing the studies 10 years ago. So if you look at those studies from now, you're in the 15 to 20 million range in there. That's directly from our customers. Unlike a store that would sell widgets, say, you would order your widgets from Calgary, you'd pay that, and then you'd have the markup, and there'd be that influx of cash. Everything that we're bringing in is being brought in, even right down to the donation money. So this building, I believe we're one of the largest purchasers of materials at Westview Co-op. Well, we're doing that without ticket sales. We're funneling money through to do this building in town. So there's, in addition to that, there's everything that our people that work for us would spend. It's their rent in town if they choose to rent. It's all of those ancillary things in addition.
So I was one of the lucky people that attended the Walk Off the Earth concert.
Yes.
And I guess I was lucky because I had all of my golf rain gear with me.
Yes.
And didn't get too soaked. And as you say, huddling in the spaces that you had there with 1,000 people or 1,500 people or whatever was certainly uncomfortable. So that to me would be a perfect example of where this facility will come in. Very handy. I'm also thinking that, they actually probably could have come into the theater had it been there.
Yes.
And performed and funnel in and out some people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Might have been, some kind of a possibility like that. So do you envision with the center that other groups could actually kind of book the center?
Oh,
like
for
if
sure.
they had an activity,
Yeah.
and I think you had mentioned before, like the Kaleidoscope Theater. If they had a bigger theater production that they wanted to do or something, somebody like that could actually book the whole center and put
For
on
sure.
a...
Yeah, or one of the floors, whatever it would be. We're not, and when we went into this, we definitely looked at it and thought, we're not a Badlands community facility. We're not a convention center. If you want to think about us in any terms, think about us as a roadhouse. And we're not Rosebud, because we don't do long range thing in this space. What we do is we provide a space where, what's Bob Davison's favorite group? Chevelles? He's been bugging me for years. So when he toured the space the other day, he said, I'm first in. Whenever it's ready, I'm first in. But it's that sort of thing. Somebody has a vision or idea or a favorite thing that they want to do, we'll facilitate that, and we'll bring that in.
The last thing I wanted to mention is you talk about the costs of the passion play going up. And to me, one of the main reasons for that is when the passion play, and you could probably fill me in on this, when the passion play originally started, what percentage of the performers, of the general staff, et cetera, were volunteers as compared with today? Because I know I've talked to many people over the years who say, I did the passion play for 15 years and I'm not going to do it anymore. So that to me kind of suggests what has happened to a certain extent to the passion play and why the costs have gone up is that 25 years ago, you could get volunteers from Drumheller. I mean, everybody was volunteering for the passion play.
Well, and
then over the years, it has gone up. Could you comment on that?
Well, and we actually are quite worried just because of changes in society. What is this going to mean for volunteers and overall? Because even for Blues and Barbecue, very tough to get enough volunteers to come out for that. We're looking at that, and we're considering that. But very true. Any nonprofit organization in the early days just blossoms over a huge influx of volunteers. Think of the ski hill. Think of what it took to keep that going, and how many people I've talked to the ones from the past, just what they poured into that. But then that sort of donor fatigue, volunteer fatigue sets in, and you start to see, and that's natural. This is a natural, well-studied, well-documented progression in the life of a nonprofit organization. You will get to a point where not only do you have to work harder to get your volunteers, you have to be very intentional about how you structure their experience. And so it actually means hiring more staff to manage the volunteers. So it actually perpetuates itself the other way. So we probably have about the same number of actual volunteer actors, but the stuff around them has grown. And I mean, myself, I came in 10 years ago, was the first full-time person to be that executive director, whereas before it was just more of a 3-season, 9-season off. So the costs have gone up. Can we reverse that? Can we change that? That's all part of the studies.
Anybody else? Jay?
Thanks, Vance, for the presentation. Could you tell me, and I'm sorry if I missed it and you said it already, what % of the center is done?
Yeah, we just had this talk with the bank about 2 hours ago. We would say that as far as a usable space, in other words, if we could still get another 30% done of the enclosures, the insulation, the drywall, and the HVAC, which just happened on Friday, then we could still use that lower event hall this winter yet for Christmas programming, whatever we wanted to do. We wouldn't get the studio done. Studio then would be aiming more toward May, June. It's going to depend a lot on finances because we're basically payday by payday now. We're down to just the last few staff there, myself and a few others and some volunteers. So as long as we can keep it going, that's the ticket.
Okay. And I'm not familiar with the term that you used, black box theater. What does that mean and what's its value?
Black box theater is a fairly, not really recent development in theater. What it means is simply that. Everything inside this box, which is square and has an 18-foot ceiling and black beams, is black. Wall, ceiling, but it's got a lot of technology built into that. So that then when you want to run programs, everything's on risers. So if you have two classical people playing a concert, they go in the center, audience goes around. If you have a tribute band, far wall, audience comes back. You can clear the whole space and do something with lights and sound and some other kind of event. You can switch everything around and come back toward the booth and do Romeo and Juliet. It's a wide open, 100% adaptable space, and that's what makes it so coveted in the theater and the performance community.
Is it so? It's so versatile.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. The answer is could easily be none of my business. So feel free to tell me that. It's been a pleasure to attend every Icons concert. I think we made every one but the first, and we were out of the country for that one, and had tickets for this year's. But as an organization that is like most not-for-profits and certainly most arts and cultures organizations, constantly struggling for funds, I've been confused and confounded every time that I see that you're giving away the profit center that is the bar at each and every one of those events. Can you explain that?
Again, when your core values start with the community side of things, our first initial foray into the world basically said, we're unskilled. We don't know. Who in the community knows that business? And then we can divide, kind of like we did with the Lions and the Burger Bar, right? We didn't have the personnel. We couldn't have staffed it. We didn't know how. So working with those folks now, we're gaining knowledge, we're gaining understanding, and you're hitting it bang on. We have to do an entire accounting across the board, hence the treasurer sitting back there and our new accountant, and they are doing this penny by penny. So yes, there will be changes.
Thank you. And last but not least, you mentioned the Coliseum. You're not proposing anything gladiatorial, are you? No?
Actually, you know what? You know who would love to come to our center is these creative anachronism people, the ones that like to do the jousting. And all.
Yeah.
They would eat it right up. Like if they came and said, we want to rent this because we want to do this guy, that'd be cool. So yeah, not quite that far back, but I think we could, Dark Ages maybe.
Understood. Thank you.
All right.
Lisa?
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
If you can hear me. So I love that concept. I can't wait to see it actually completed. I think it'll do quite a bit for the organization, not to mention the overflow that it'll bring into the town. I do have one question, though. I noticed on that mock-up that you had of the building that the bathrooms were up on the top. Is there more bathrooms planned for lower level?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Lower level has the elevator and 3 new ones. So all the existing ones are there. So the lower level has 3 new ones, and the upper level has 3 new ones, actually 4 if you count the one in the green room.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's a great thing.
Yes.
Not
For
much
sure.
to the conversation, but I was just curious.
and it's an interesting, it's been like shoehorning everything. There's 5 design conventions on that building that we have followed religiously that were set up from the beginning. Initially, it was a larger piece, and we were going after the federal government for 500 because that was the limit. And when they came back and said, you can only have 2, will you still do something? We said, sure, we're going to shift it. We're going to attach it to what we've already got and then do some renovation. And then when CFAP came in, that's what made the studio possible. So we've just adapted and created. But down the road, yeah, definitely. New washroom facilities, larger washroom facilities, that's all part of the game.
Fantastic.
You bet.
Thanks, Vance.
Anybody else? Well, thank you for that, and thank you again. You should promote that it is a great wedding venue for photos.
Yes, I heard.
Ours,
You had a great time.
Yes, ours turned out, my son's, his
You bet.
new wife turned out beautiful, so. And I just want to also just, I think that whole largest black box theater thing, you could really super play on that, because it is a real big thing right now.
Well, and we are, you'll see the new sign going up by the penitentiary. It'll say, visit Canada's largest outdoor stage. We're getting some traction on that because because our actors, we've measured the ground with the Google, the GIS mapping. Our actors will set foot on 6 acres worth of land to perform the Passion Play. Nobody else does that. So we are now putting that out there, and it's going to be consistent messaging, Canada's largest outdoor stage, Canada's largest outdoor stage. Black box is a little trickier because there's some in Calgary that say we're a black box, but they don't have movable seating. So they're not really. So we try to say, well, we think we're really it. But anyways, we'll keep working with it.
Okay, and yes, if anybody that gets a chance to go check out on the
Sunday.
customers, Sunday from 10 till 2.
11 till 3,
11 till
hot
3.
dogs, and Louis Frere Family Band will be performing on stage. Looks like a lovely day. So come back and sit in the amphitheater and listen to the last little bit of music.
Yeah, and
We
I
can't
had
qualify you as ticket buyers, though.
No.
But
I had the honor of going through the building, and it is incredible. So if
great.
people get a chance. So thanks so much, Vance, and we'll deal with the other stuff later. All right, let's move on. Oh, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
One more quick question, Vance. So if people wanted to volunteer or donate to your organization, what's the easiest route or way to do so?
badlandsamp.com.
All right.
Badlandsamp.com. Badlandsamp.com. Never forget.
Perfect.
Okay, let's move on to 3.11, Daryl.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a couple of strategic plan updates. First is on derelict buildings. And this was actually the creation of a bylaw for derelict buildings. And we had done a draft of it last winter and floated it to our solicitor, who provided some feedback to it. And then just with summer and everything else, we have not done anything else with it. His opinion is that we actually don't need a separate bylaw for it, that we should be able to incorporate it in the existing community standards bylaw and just have a bit more teeth in it. So we're working through that. We'll do that over the winter time. So,
Any comments? Okay, and do you want to go on to?
so what's that, Tom? Second thing, Dino merchandise program. So with our new branding and our branding team, one of the things that they did was create a whole bunch of merchandise. And so just to show an example of a couple items. So one is a little dinosaur we've got that we're having, and then 2 is just shirts that some have gone out. We have a bunch of other things too. So we're in the process of talking to a couple of retailers in town to be able to market these on our behalf. They've actually approached us about wanting to do this. We're talking to the Visitor Information Center about the same thing, about getting them to market this for us, as well as when our new website's up and running and we're kind of past that, we're talking about doing an online store so we can actually have this stuff go out to be ordered anywhere in the world. So if you're interested in being a participant and wanting to do it, I would suggest contacting Erica Crocker at the town, and she can at least take your name and number and information, and we can get on that. And we're looking to do a couple of different designs over the next 6 months for some of the other stuff that we've done with it. So so it's underway. T-shirts are very reasonable, as are everything else. So yeah, we're looking forward to selling a lot of it. So
Questions? Jay?
and Tom.
Daryl, I'm very pleased to hear about all of that. My concerns lie with, even though it's something, direct sales is something that I very much want us to be able to do. I mean, for every partner that we take on, of course, we're talking about sharing the revenue in some way. Whose basket have we poured direct sales onto? Because if it is to take off in any way, shape, or form, the shipping, the order filling, all those kinds of things could eventually be take up quite a bunch of someone's day.
Excellent question, Jay. And the answer is, as of right now, we haven't put it to anybody. What we thought about, Eric and I just talked about it last week, that if we were to become successful at it, then we would probably just tag one of our casual employees that work at the BCF or Aquaplex to be able to do that on an ad hoc basis. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I was just wondering, has the museum been approached in terms of, like,
Not yet.
the museum gift shop is a gold mine. I mean, we all know that, so.
well, the museum gift shop is also, there's a bit of a tie into with the chamber and also with the society, but we have not talked to them yet. We've only talked to the Visitor Information Center at the world's largest dinosaur.
Lisa?
The Cooperating Society has a meeting this week. I'm more than capable to take something back to them if you want to put something together, and I can present it to them.
Yes, please. Sure.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, well then, I guess we'll just put on that now it's complete, because it's already in progress, right? So we can just update the strategic plan. Thank you. Now it's just ongoing now. Perfect. Okay, I will call Darwin forward for 3.21, an update on flood mitigation project, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Pleased to be here to give another update to the flood mitigation program as we move it forward. A lot of good information, a lot of good feedback from a good number of residents and, in fact, homeowners. There's still some folks out there that I don't know if struggling to find their way to the proper information or they're just sharing misinformation, but we're doubling down our efforts to try and help them find what we have. To echo what Vance said, drumheller.ca, flood mitigation, drumheller.ca, flood mitigation, drumheller.ca, flood mitigation might help them find their way to some of the information. But as I say, by and large, terrific amount of the community pleased to see the project moving forward. I just want to take a few minutes and go over several of the categories of information that we're working on right now. And the design is kicking into high gear. Several elements of that. One is the regulatory and approvals, which requires us to be on site to examine what the flora and fauna is, what the condition of some of the properties are that we're going to be working through, and then the geotechnical. Some of this might be old hat for council as we talk through it, but I think it's important that we repeat some of our messaging. I think the mayor reminded me the other day that often people need to hear it at least 7 times before they actually hear what we're saying, so we'll keep saying it. Our geotechnical work will commence in the next couple of weeks. Some of it will be a street side where we're not having to go into the backyards. Wherever we can avoid that, we will. But we have to collect this information. Riverbanks in several areas, we have to examine those in detail with drones and with survey and in the water as well, so that we can try and establish areas that we might have to do armoring or riprap, as it's called, on the banks. So that work will be proceeding. Stormwater, the ponds that protect the south part of Drumheller. There's 4 ponds, pond 300, 310, 320, and 330 behind Hunts Crescent, Huntington Park, and Twin Hills Close. And the 4th is along Highway 9. Those need some renewal. We're looking at various strategies to maybe make them bigger and stronger over the period of time that we see as a horizon in our climate adaptation report that's saying that we're going to probably experiencing more and more high-intensity storms that are a little longer duration. We've seen a couple examples this summer, and the force of nature can be frightening from time to time, especially when we're trying to look at that. So that drainage channel ends up going through South Drumheller, just at the eastern edge of Bankview, and then through the area near where the Quick Lube and the Boston Pizza are, crosses under the track, goes by the Alliance Church, and through underground at the Sunshine Lodge. So we've been having discussions with the infrastructure group that'll be working with the Sunshine Lodge to make certain that we are incorporating overland flow designs in case the storm sewer ever becomes overwhelmed. But we've also got some flood mitigation measures to do there. So as that project ramps up, we're collaborating with them to make certain that our designs are fitting. Part of the design is the condition assessment of the existing dikes. And we continue to negotiate with the province of Alberta on the transfer of diking that is their responsibility. They're in a very tough way budget-wise, so we might have to work with them over the longer term to see if there's solutions that we can incorporate into the overall program that will affect some of the repairs. But first order is that we brush off and mow the existing dikes and remove a lot of the trees that are growing into the diking so that they don't cause problems if the beavers take them down or a high flow takes them out. So we've been doing a bit of work on that. And we will continue over the next few weeks. Dike C, which is on the left bank of the river or the north side of the Red Deer River from the Gordon Taylor Bridge downstream to about the fireworks site, that was cleaned up last week. The crews are doing an excellent job of just being very attentive to what they're doing and cleaning up the areas nearby rather than leaving a few straggly things here and there, and just really doing a good job cleaning that up. They're working on Darkdyke B behind the BCF right now. We're not doing many large trees, but there are some large trees that are absolutely dangerous as we really get a look at them. They've got to come down, and then we'll look after the foliage drops this fall at some of the other ones to assess those. They're also working on Darkdyke B, which basically encapsulates from the Machichi Creek crossing on 838 all the way around to the Gordon Taylor Bridge near Shady Grove Campground, and we'll continue to work on those areas. We also, in order to assess the availability or the ability of the former rail line from the Clark Hill to the Hoodoos, we're doing work on that presently, the old CPR line, so that we can get the geotech crews in to do an assessment on that abandoned rail line and the portion up to Rosedale to see whether or not it will be suitable for long-term diking. On that, some of these areas will naturally lend themselves to people wanting to adventure and just explore. And they're not formal trails, but on the same note, I think people are going to start using them for that. So rather than race ahead and try and figure out the entire wayfinding system, we'll be reintroducing or continuing to use the old Morris, the Hikeosaurus. We'll put a few sticks in the ground to hold up some wayfinding. We won't be getting elaborate on that, but enough that people know what they're getting into if they all of a sudden start hiking towards the Hoodoos, that it's 7 or 10 or 15 kilometers, and give them some wayfinding to help out. Doing extensive calls last week, and we'll continue this and next with the banking and insurance industry, the Intact Center at Waterloo, and the Institute of Catastrophic Loss. We made some good progress last week. And what the upshot of that is, if there are protective measures being put in place or introduced by municipalities if that municipality is in a position and can inform the insurance industry and the banking industry that those measures are being instituted, those two industries may look more favorably at allowing coverage to take place for whatever casualty or loss, not just flood mitigation, to be in place, and may stave off decisions by various banking agencies as to whether or not they have any reticence of providing mortgages. So that's been our aim right from the start, one of our stated goals, that we must protect the value of the properties and keep them insurable and protected from flooding, which means we need the protection measures in place. And those measures, of course, go between the river and those neighborhoods throughout the valley. So approximately 1,300 homes at a 1% return frequency event. That escalates considerably if we had a flood of the magnitude that High River went through, which was probably about a 1 in 1,000 event, or if we had an ice jam of the magnitude that Fort McMurray went through, far eclipses what the 1% return frequency would be, and we'd probably start getting into the area of about 2,000 homes that would be necessary to recover. So with that, it's really important that we look at the broad picture, and we certainly realize and are trying to deal with it as best we can, that we are imposing on some lands to acquire their property for the benefit of the entire community or neighborhood, as the case may be. So again, it's rooted in a lot of the banking and insurance and new ways that the federal government is handing out money or not handing out money, as they've made in various announcements. So it's extremely important that we get our strategy moving forward. Under the land acquisition of those areas that we're trying to assemble the right-of-way for, we've got about 16 offers out there. 8 of those have been accepted and are moving to closure. We also have a couple that have been withdrawn. Those were opportunistic ones where they were put on the market, and we said, hey, if you're interested, away we go. Maybe we can look at your list price. Or in fact, we got appraisals on some of them and their list price was maybe a little high. So anyways, we agreed to withdraw those. Access agreements, the Nackmine area, 56 agreements are sought. 18 of them are at the far west end. The other ones are in the major threat area of Nackmine. 28 of those have been executed now, which is excellent, and we'll be able to start moving forward. 3 have out and out declined, and that's fine as well. Rosedale, throughout the aerial and Rosedale proper, we commenced today, a few over the weekend, getting consent to look in those backyards and their properties so we can do the similar what we're doing in Nackmine. And East Cooley and Cambria will start this week as well for us to be exploring in those areas as we can move forward. Indigenous consultation. There's 2 tracks, a federal track, and then there's the Aboriginal Consultation Office ran by the Government of Alberta. We've submitted the information through Scotland and Lease to the ACO. They've responded that they've received it and have put it to a field supervisor. We should hear some engagement information from the 5 nations that we need to engage. And I have my fingers crossed and visions of sugar cookies that we will get that before freeze up and not have to shovel snow, but I think I said that last year. Our climate adaptation greenhouse gas mitigation assessments are complete. We're just in the final review, preparing to submit those to Canada. Canada will then review those and we'll have discussion with them as to did it follow the proper protocols that are in place, and from that be able to move forward and look at how we're going to incorporate adaptation strategies. Adaptation strategies will include not building the dikes to their absolute highest height for a major event, but probably at the more predictable level that we're looking at, on through to the tree inventory that we've created, so we can look at how much more cooling and carbon capture can we create through vegetation. That will then subtend right into everything from how we mow grass to which areas we mow or don't mow. That will come as we develop the program hand in hand with other implementations. Direct communications, we're obviously the dike inspections, some photos going out. We've done some videos. Again, very positive response by and large for that. Monthly newsletter, there's 274 people now that have subscribed to that. So it's getting some penetration and some views. Farmers Market, April and Michelle attended at a booth for the flood office, Town of Drum. Over the weekend, seen about 100 visitors chat it up, spin the wheel, and do some other things. The focus was certainly the Emergency Preparedness Month, which is this month, but flood mitigation crept into the conversation in a few circumstances, and I think we only had 1% that had a little bit of a desire to have a dust up, but other than that, it went very, very well, so kudos to them for a great job. First Instagram post went up last night, Sunday night. The team was able to get that through. So now we can start talking to everyone. So it's the Gen Z, the Gen X, and the Gen M that we're talking about, plus the boomers. So hopefully that will work out to be able to talk to that group. A dike inspection video was posted today that should help people understand what's occurring there. I want to emphasize that we will not in people's backyards be doing what we're doing to the dikes to do the inspection on them. We won't be removing vegetation. We won't be doing anything intrusive, but I think it's very important for people to understand we will not be removing vegetation in their backyards to do our assessments. Our focus this week will be describing the 8 steps to change the channel. The center spread in the Drumheller Mail last week identifies that. It's something that since probably August 4th we've talked about at this table with the MDP and will continue to talk about. We're introducing Morris on the Trail in the newspaper. It'll be Wisdom Wednesdays featuring Morris and him discussing things in the rumor mill and changing his hiking stick in for a rumor stick so that we can try and meet some of these outlandish rumors head on. And I'm not going to steal the thunder of what's going to be in there on Wednesday, but we'll have a bit of fun while we're at this. Working on logistics for community engagement sessions. We're looking at a few of those to be held after Thanksgiving and various neighborhoods throughout the valley and various audiences. So that's pretty important that we move on that. So, Your Worship, members of council, that's my report. Happy to answer any questions should there be any.
Thank you. Anybody want to start? Lisa?
Sure. Thanks, Darwin. That's a good report. Just a few things here. Compliments, and I also want to echo them. I've heard from a few ladies that they're actually feeling safer when they're walking on, I guess that would be Darkdyke B, just because the clearing of the foliage has made it seem more open, especially if you're walking in the evening. So thanks on that. I also noticed on that same dike that there was a couple of large trees that were now sporting some purple ribbons. I'm just curious as to if you're aware of that, or I'm assuming that was for them to perhaps be hugged and not saved. And I'm personally hoping that they're actually earmarked to be removed because they are absolute dangers to this community, considering how they're bitten down at the bottoms by the beavers and it's going towards the ballpark. So,
yeah, on the trees, trees falling over are a great danger. Trees die back and just look horrible. But we can't forget that those trees also have their roots underneath the dike. And when we have it die back and the roots die back with it, sometimes that can create a void under the dike that could allow to some real serious seepage, if not flow. On the river side, when we have a tree in the edge of the dike or on the bank, kind of acts like a wing on an airplane, that it speeds up the velocity of the river because the whole river's trying to get by, and it's impeded a bit by this tree in the water. Well, the water's got to speed up to go around it, and we hear the term eddies, or those swirly things downstream. Well, they can auger and excavate all kinds of earth downstream of them, and as such become very dangerous to our diking system. So being very proactive, our tree farm, our strategy to be able to identify what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, to replace those trees, I think will give everybody a level of comfort that it's the right thing to do, and we've got to make trade-offs all the time. We've got to figure out what we're going to do with those big logs, and whether they're going to be benches or other structures, I don't know yet, but we're working on that with our design. So thank you for that question.
We need to implement them. And just the last one, I had a member from the Riverview Terrace say that there's 3 trees that are on the town property by the drainage ditch that are also dead, and they're hoping that perhaps in this process that they can be removed as well.
Yeah, I think there's actually some conversation that might even happen today that got back to me, and we've confirmed that.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Darwin.
Anybody else? Jay?
Thanks again, Darwin, for the level of detail. As I mentioned last week, this is exactly what I was hoping for. But I do have to ask, now that it's been a couple of weeks, I mean, one of the issues that pops up from time to time, because we're one of a few municipalities that meets weekly, that sometimes the amount of time and effort put into preparing for reports weekly starts to take away from the ability to meet objectives weekly. How are you finding that a couple of weeks into coming this frequently with this level of information?
So I think for the reporting, it's fine. Some of the deadlines for agenda preparation, we're probably only about 7 work days from one council meeting to another to get stuff on the agenda. But Daryl and I have been working on that, and we get it in as we can and get it circulated. I think the return on investment right now for the information that we're putting together and making these reports, I think is a very high rate of return, and we'll continue with it to the extent possible. Whether or not it's as we get into late fall and early winter, whether or not it's every meeting, that's certainly council's election, and we'll work on that.
Thanks, because I can foresee at some point, like you said, a few months down the road, downshifting to every 2 would seem to make sense. And I just wanted to provide my feedback as well. I don't know what the video was titled. I think it was posted over the weekend, but the one that has yourself as well as the CAO, someone from O2, and anyway, that video is among the best done that I've seen the office put out. I think it goes a long way to explaining the impetus behind everything and reminding people of what not only what the past, how lucky we've been in the past, but also does that great job that we talked about so many times about providing visual cues to people who have seen the language a few times, but it's not registering. And so seeing forgive me, the words escaping me now, but what we're calling the river plus, what those different protected zones look like, the protected and development and so on. I think those videos go a long way to help reinforce those messages to people who have had a tough time understanding what we're trying to say. So kudos to everyone who was involved in that video. I look forward to seeing more and more of that stuff coming out as we go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Some members are present and others are eagerly watching on TV, so I thank you very much for that compliment.
Tony?
Thanks, Darwin, for the very detailed report. Just wanted to ask about the Indigenous consultations. So we're completed, we're submitted, we're not approved yet, and is that the final piece to unlock the federal funding?
Thanks for your question. I'll recap that. There's two streams. One is a federal stream where the federal government and part of our funding with them identified that we should engage particular First Nations that they feel were within the region. We did that last year, had consultation with them to the extent that the federal government said, we're satisfied if you continue to consult with them. A complete different process is with the Alberta government through the Aboriginal Consultation Office. And what they require is anywhere that it's Crown land that we identify the area that we're going to be working in, what we're going to be doing in that area, and when, submit that to the consultation office so they can disseminate that within government, but also that they can ensure that we're adequately engaging those nations that they feel, separate from the federal government, that they feel that we should engage. So that process has taken some time because we've just basically got our design moving enough that I think we use the word prophetic alignments, just to say that's our best guess, I guess, is a new way of saying that. That's been submitted to that office, and we will have further consultation required, including field visits and other discussions that will probably continue throughout the project.
Okay, thanks for your clarity on that. And then just my final note there on the community engagement, kind of looking forward to that after Thanksgiving and bringing more information out to the community as it's available.
Tom?
Yeah, further to the community engagement. So the community engagement target audience will be the same or different? Will it be a general audience? Will it be a specific area? Like, for example, will we have a community engagement session in East Cooley, primarily for East Cooley? And or will we have a community engagement session for those people who do not live adjacent to the river to try to inform them and explain how the flood mitigation and how floods in the valley would affect them? So I'm just wondering what your target audiences will be for the community engagement sessions.
Thanks, that's an excellent question. The community engagement focuses relatively on the municipal development plan and the land use bylaw. October 26th being the public hearing date that council has set. So our first audience, of course, is all of Drumheller. So people that live up out of the valley on the plains above, those that live in non-neighborhood areas, which the Rosedale Road, parts of the Wayne Valley, Verdant Valley, areas like that would be another one to be able to engage them. And then those that are directly affected by the major impetus of change to the land use bylaw and the NDP, and that is those that are in the floodplain of Drumheller, would be the third audience. Certainly, we're not naive to think that, no, we're just going to talk about LUB and NDP. We're going to talk about flood mitigation strategies, whatever the people want to come up with. And the thought is that we will likely start in East Cooley, have sessions at the BCF, have sessions with interest groups, Pioneer Trail Society. There's quite a number that we'll want to work through. And the hope is that the council will be able to facilitate, broker, manage those sessions so that, can work as advocates for some of the folks around that just don't know all the questions to ask or how to navigate this very large issue. So we'll be discussing that very shortly with council to try and create some of the detail so that we can then begin implementing advertising and moving forward.
One last question. Have you come across any surprises? You've been working on flood mitigation now for quite a while. And I would imagine you kind of had some thoughts about what it was going to be and how it was going to work and what was going to happen and what you were going to see. Have you come across any surprises, either pleasant surprises or not so pleasant surprises in your journeys so far in flood mitigation?
Nothing should surprise me. But yes, there have been surprises. Probably the overwhelming surprise is just how educated most of the community is on flooding and the responses required and their memory of what has occurred, but also their ability to project and understand what does it mean when we describe to them what the 1915 flow was. What happens if the river doesn't read the manual and figure out that it's only supposed to be at 1850 CMS and it goes to 1851? So that ability, really, I'm very glad. I didn't think we were as far well versed as a flood community as it appears we are. To contrast that on the other end, this has been a long journey. And some of the people that are getting involved in the absolute negative, forgive me, garbage that's been pushed out, I just can't even figure out where their heads are at. And it really pains me that we actually invest time trying to make them learn, especially when it's people that have sat in this room that probably know better. So that's probably the biggest surprise that I've had on this journey so far. But overwhelmingly, a very, very positive surprise overshadows the garbage, if you will.
Anybody else? Those dikes are amazing when all that stuff is cleaned up. Wow. So I guess I'm curious, Daryl, what's the plan for the future so that they never, are they going to be built into the budget, or have you guys discussed that, or what the?
Well, we have talked about adding a section to the operating budget every year to be able to have dedicated maintenance on it as we move forward, especially because we know we're going to be adding kilometers of diking throughout the valley, and so that all needs to be maintained and managed. So we don't know what that looks like yet, but absolutely that's part of the plan. So
Excellent.
I'd like to just add to that. We're going to look at a comprehensive flood mitigation system that isn't just one or two dikes. It's the whole fabric of the storm system, the sanitary system, the diking system. And with that, we'll be bringing back a consolidated plan that tries to predict those very amounts so that we can start introducing it into the budget as we complete the capital works, and they have to be worked on. So great progress.
Excellent. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for that great presentation. It's good to just keep people informed with all the facts we can give them. So now we are going to move into closed session. We have two items, Badlands Amphitheater and Drumheller flood mitigation. Both are disclosure harmful to business interests of third party. So therefore, after this is done, we will be done. So the end of our meeting is now. And so can I get a motion to go in camera? Lisa, second. Tony, all in favor?